Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just really excited to be here. It's amazing to see so many great young faces here and new leaders that can do such great things in the future. Thank you for the introduction. My name is Louie. I actually go back with some of these people here. Angelica, I've known you for, 12 years now. Bernard, we actually went to college together at San Francisco State University, but we're reunited here in Las Vegas. Very touching story. And Jerry Schroeder here, I've known since she was a city councilwoman. She was the only Asian American elected in the state of Nevada at that time as the mayor pro tem of Henderson and also my mentor. So I'm just really glad to be here. And Auntie Rosita, if she's still here. She has a street named after her. If you don't know that, there's Rosita Lee Way. Okay, so little story I'm going to tell you right now is, to this day, I never know what I'm going to talk about until I get in front of the mic. So I actually have no idea what I'm going to talk about. It's going to be a very dynamic conversation, but it always starts off with making it very interpersonal. I want to understand what you're here for. So I'm going to pick on a couple of you in the audience that I may not know your name. I'm going to point to you and ask you a question. So you over here, so why did you come to Rooted and Rising? What did you expect to get out of it today?
Hello. Well, my name is Leora. I was a panelist earlier. I honestly didn't know what to expect when I walked into the room today. I've never been to WeWork before. I knew just on surface level what type of topics we were going to be talking about, but I didn't know what kind of stories I would get out of it. So I'm really excited to find that out.
Awesome. And I'm going to ask another question. It seems one of the topics today is leadership. So how would you define leadership in your eyes? Do you believe it's something that you learn and become, or is it genetic? What are the characteristics of leadership? I'm going to pick on you right here.
So I was also one of the panelists earlier today. I think that's a fantastic question, and I think leadership is both and all of the above. I think some of it is we're born with it. I think some of it is passed down to us through our lineage, but I also think it's learned. I think it's embodied, and I think it's something that you have to grow into.
Great answer. Great answer. So now it kind of gives me a little story to talk about today. So a little history. On my side, I'm actually a mixed, what you call a mutt. So I'm half Chinese American, half Chamorro, and also 1/8 Filipino. So I cover all the spectrum there. On the Chinese side, we're actually 6 generations Chinese American here in the US. So we've been in the media advocating for Asian Americans or Chinese Americans for over 100 years. So even my grandmother was talking about how we're Americans of Asian descent or Chinese descent back in World War II. And I'm really proud about the lineage we've done. There's a little backstory I'll tell a little bit later about my great-grandfather. But anyhow, I want to tell you a little bit about why I see leadership. And one thing I do believe is it's something that is socialized, that if you're raised in a certain environment, if something happens or emotional trigger affects you, it makes you become very passionate about something. And I'll tell you a story. Speaking of Congresswoman Susie Lee, we were actually on a hike a couple years ago, and one of the people that were on the hike was a woman who was getting her master's in organizational leadership. And I said, I'm really fascinated about the topic that you're studying. Can you tell me what creates leadership? She said, usually it's something that happens, it's very tragic in someone's life, something like an emotional trigger that makes you determined why you want to make a change in this world or make a difference. And I kind of thought in retrospect or in introspect of why I was passionate about making a difference. And I'm going to tell you my personal story. Years ago, back in around 2003, I met the woman of my dreams. She was runner-up Miss Hawaii, Filipina, of course, Miss Filipina Hawaii. She handled tourism for the state of Hawaii. It was one of those instances where you have the first date and you get the butterflies in the stomach and you're all nervous and scared and stuttering around her. I normally don't do that. I fell in love with her, and months or years later we got engaged and we got married. 4 months after married, 7.5 months pregnant with my daughter, she was diagnosed with brain cancer. And it was very difficult for me to be hit by that. You imagine you're having a future with somebody for the rest of your life, and then you get told that your wife's going to survive for 18 months prognosis. I had spent a year and a half living in hospitals, going every day to chemo, radiation treatments, while never sleeping and raising a premature daughter who was born at 7.5 months. I'd a year and a half of sleeping 2 hours a day, and sacrificing my whole life and not knowing that this kind of thing, this kind of catastrophe can affect your life. She passed away when my daughter was only a year old, and this is why I moved to Las Vegas. And as sad as the story is, it did teach me how you can do what I call the art of pain transference. I took all that pain, all that tragedy, all that emotion, all that love, and wanted to build a legacy for the future of her memory and our daughter's memory. And so my daughter is now 16 years old. I'm sure some of you know her. She's like the future president of the United States, so if you haven't heard it. So I'm serious. Yeah, when she was 9, she spoke at the United Nations about women's rights and gender equality and measures to eliminate international terrorism at 9 in New York. For those who are involved in politics, you probably know that she does the introduction speeches for presidential candidates. She endorses congressional U.S. Senate and presidential candidates. So they actually come to her for endorsements. The funny story is when Hillary Clinton was running for president, her staff calls me up and goes, are you the father of Savon Louie? And I'm like, yeah. They're like, yeah, you need to bring her backstage to meet with Hillary. I'm like, okay. They're like, well, she wants her to meet backstage and take her home. What about me? Like, your job's a driver. You're like the Uber driver. I'm like, okay. That's my role, Uber driver for Savon. So, but she's amazing. She's active in speech and debate now. And really, you know, I want to extract what some of the people said today in their speeches. One is never, ever underestimate your human potential, right? And I'm going to say this because I raised my daughter that way. And I'm going to tell you right now, the things that we've achieved and lived through were all because we didn't believe in those obstacles and those barriers. You know, I experienced racism, prejudice, ageism, all types of things. You know, I can tell you, in high school, I lived off potatoes for 4 months. You know what it's like to eat potatoes every day? It's the cheapest thing you can eat, seriously. And I lived that for 4 months straight. And so, you know, when you go through those hardships and those conditions, you realize, hey, you know where you came from. That humility is there, but also that passion, that hustle, that drive. And also say, you know, I can accomplish anything in this world if I set my mind to it. So I want to talk about the Philippines. So what Asian Pacific Joint Venture is essentially, I had this crazy idea that I'm going to go to the Philippines. I've never been to the Philippines at the time, and I'm going to transform the whole country. So I'm going to modernize the Philippines. And an ambitious statement it was at the time, and very skeptical people. I assembled people, all of them way smarter than me. They're brilliant. I'm the dumbest guy in the room. That's where you want to be, right? But they're global thinkers, global strategists, have transformed countries in global education and technologies and infrastructure. We came to the Philippines about a year and a half ago. So I spent about 8 months of the past 2 years essentially in the Philippines. So half my life is spent there. And we now handle the US-based roadshow for the Asian Development Bank, so handling all the infrastructure for the Philippines and ADB's financing for the Asian Pacific, disaster mitigation, clean tech, smart cities, renewable energy. We also help with the economic briefing of the Philippines with the President, BBM, and the cabinet ministers. I'm actually flying out to Asian Pacific Economic Council in San Francisco to meet with our world leaders to discuss global strategies and changes to impact their respective countries and delegations. And, you know, back a year and a half ago, no one would have believed that. I've never been to the Philippines, or we've never had that history, but it's a frame of mind. It's the ability to believe that you have the capability to do that. You know, other people know that we also have this big K-pop concert here. And if you like K-pop in the room, raise your hands. Got to be some, oh, okay, there's got to be more K-pop fans here. All right, WeBridge, any of you guys heard about WeBridge? It's at Mandalay Bay. That's our event. Hope you can win. There's like 25,000 people that came last time. That also came with an idea. We thought, oh, hey, let's get some artists together. You know, do it at Mandalay Bay, Michelob Ultra Arena, 25,000 people. Now we're doing the second year. And, you know, all these different ideas that ventures that we've launched that, you know, it's about taking a risk. Yes, you're going to fail. I mean, I failed 9 out of 10 times. It only takes that one extra time to succeed to make a difference. But you're going to fail. But what failure brings to you is experience, wisdom, and knowledge that, hey, now I now apply this better. Now I learned what to do in this situation and how to persevere. And if you study the most brilliant entrepreneurs, and, you know, when I was younger, when I was 18, I read Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and all these people just to study what makes them who they are, right? And you'll find they all have this very similar personality or archetype. Learn to study these people. Learn to study a lot of these people that just spoke before me. Like I'm awe-stricken by them, and I take notes, mental notes, to know I wish I can apply that towards the future. And what I've done, also what I've learned, is that a lot of them, what they do is actually meditate. And if you actually spend 10 minutes before you go to bed and reflect on your day and say, what decisions could I have made better? What reasons or rationale could I have done? And then learn to improve or innovate that the next day. That's called self-cultivation or path of enlightenment, other ways of saying it. But if you constantly improve yourself every day, 365 days a year, where are you going to be 5 years from now? So I know I probably rambled on a bunch of different subjects and told a bunch of different stories, but I just want to say, you're all very capable of achieving so many great things. There's great organizations here, AAPI Chamber, Catherine, Francisco, and Angelica, and Bernard, and everybody here that's part of, built this program. Please be engaged in our leadership. Be engaged in our programming. I personally wear a lot of hats here. I'm on the board of Allegiant Stadium. I'm also part of this advisory of the Super Bowl host committee, Steve Aoki's foundation, UNLV, a bunch of other stuff. And really it's about making a difference and empowering others. And we love to see people like you aspiring to make a difference in this community. It only helps us become better people. And the best leaders are the ones who empower others, not build followers. So I just want to say thank you for the opportunity of speaking today. I don't know if I went over my 10 minutes. If there's any Q&A, go ahead. I've probably talked about a bunch of random tangents, but thank you very much for allowing me to speak today. Thanks.